Welcome! This is Unfolding, the show where I talk to creative business minds. My name is Marco Pfann,
and today we are talking to Wesley Ter Har, the co-founder of MediaMonks.
So welcome, we are back at the Unfolding podcast, and today I'm talking to Wesley Ter Har, the co-founder of MediaMonks. Welcome.
Thanks, Marco.
So, how comes that you're sitting in Mexico now?
Well, it's not just because of the weather, although it helps. We have an amazing team here. It's a really key market for us for talent and teams, and also our biggest commercial market in Latin America. So I've spent regular time here since 2018.
Why do you you think this is a sizable market? Like, this is something like a big company, because MediaMonks is big, right? MediaMonks.
Yeah.
This is a market that is big enough for you?
Well, it works in two ways. One, we have amazing talent here that works for our global clients, including our client base in the US, which is by far our biggest market. But it is an interesting market when you look at it as maybe the new hub for Latin America. I think historically, for our big enterprise clients, that has been Miami or Spain. But I think Mexico City is one of the most exciting cities on the planet. It attracts a lot of talent at every level of seniority, and it means more of the ownership on Latin American budgets, or at least Spanish Latin American budgets, now sit here. So I think it's grown as a commercial opportunity for us, and I honestly believe it will keep growing. I think Mexico in general is on the right side of a massive amount of trends at the moment. So I sound a bit like the Mexico City tourists board, but it's a city that has a lot of growth still to come. So we're seeing that reflected in business opportunities.
That's beautiful. I mean, it's a lovely country, nice people, and if the industry is picking up, that would be amazing.
Yeah, creative industry. I mean, Wyden started an office here, I think about a year and a half ago.
Really?
I think Gut is here now. So you can see, was actually surprising to me when we first started here. There was really only the traditional set of agencies and very few of the indies or digital natives. But we're seeing that change as well. So we were maybe a little earlier, but it's good to get a bit of company.
So the reason I wanted to have you on the podcast, because if anyone knows something about the future of the creative industry, then it got to be you, because you're at the forefront of everything on AI, on everything, what's happening right now. But before we dig into that, would you give me, give the audience a quick introduction who MediaMonks is? Because I think there are one or two out there that still don't know who you are. So please, quick summary. Where do you come from? How was it possible that you grew to, I think, like 6,000 people now, right?
Yeah, I think we're 8,500. So it's a story of two parts. I co-founded it in 2001. Really very young at that time, so no master plan, very far from it. But excitement, right? The excitement of, at that time, a relatively new channel, creative opportunities of what we used to call the internet, and really a celebration of that sort of moment of creativity. So the original tagline for MediaMonks was MediaMonks Digital Art. And of course, 2001 wasn't a great moment to start anything in digital. As it started picking up, we became a dominant sort of digital native indie in our local market, the Netherlands, and then started becoming an international player in 2010, where we focused heavily on digital creativity and craft from a production perspective. Grew that into a global footprint with 4 offices and about 300 people. And then really got to a point that we wanted more, took on some outside investment, tripled the company. And then in 2018, joined forces with Sir Martin Sorrell, SMS, as we call it, Sir Martin Sorrell, to really use MediaMonks as the foundational part to build a competitor for the traditional network companies that our industry is sort of dominated by. And that's what we've been doing for the last 4 to 5 years. We've done that in 2 ways. One is what we call mergers. We don't do acquisitions, we do mergers. We've brought a lot of amazing talent in, but we've also had lots of really great organic growth because I think we offer something that's a bit different, slightly different way of working. Single P&L, single brand, makes it easier for our talent to organize and operate around what our clients need. And we're probably broadly seen as a player that sits a bit more at the front lines of change. And that can be changing user behavior, it can be changing technology, it can be changing platform. But I think we've always been seen as a partner that can help clients manage through that change and then sort of grow on top of it. And that's where we're at now. Let's say it's 8,500 people, 34 offices. So it's
so
quite
many
sizable.
questions about how you grew that with the different levels, the different stages, but we're not going to get into that today. It's like a whole other episode. But you said change, like you're at the forefront. You're seen as being someone at the forefront of change. So tell me, what do you think where the whole creative industry is heading right now?
Well, I think we're probably seeing one of the most disruptive moments the industry will go through. And I have it at the level of probably the initial commercialization of the internet, where both consumer behavior, technology, and the role of agency or agency-like partners changed. I think we're going through the next phase of that with generative AI, but also what generative AI unlocks in the sort of broader end-to-end AI ecosystem. I think a lot of our industry isn't quite ready for that change yet.
Okay.
Because it forces us to think differently about commercial models, right? Our industry broadly is based on time and material. Like you get paid mostly for the hours your people spend on things. But if you look at AI broadly, it's a speed and scale story, right? You can do more and you can do it in shorter amounts of time, which is fundamentally, there's a fundamental friction there when you look at traditional agency commercial models. So I think at the industry level, and I'm having a lot of those conversations with clients, right? Changing commercial models, working together in different ways, more value-based payment models, more output-based payment models. If you look at it from a talent perspective, I think it's the biggest explosion of creativity that I've seen in a really long time. I think it opens up a really interesting different way of working for creatives. I think it gives them, it's an overused term, but it gives them superpowers in many ways.
Okay.
And I think generative AI really unlocks what marketing teams, creative teams, agency teams can do for business, right? I think we can have a much bigger impact on business. I think we can unlock the original promise of digital. Right? The original promise of digital is a version of personalization at massive scale, in real time, high in context, conversational. Like that's the promise.
So fractional marketing, something like that?
Yeah, sequential, highly personalized. There's this hint of what digital advertising and marketing ecosystem and consumer experience should feel like. Mm-hmm. I think AI is actually the technology that closes the gap between the promise and the current reality. So it's exciting.
Okay, but here's the common creative, and here's what we just talked about, like fractional. Yeah. I like marketing and tech, and I mean having AI definitely closes the gap or helps us, but there's a mindset problem, don't you think? Like with the people, like getting like you talked about the impact of business. Do people actually, in your experience, because you work with a lot of people, you have a lot of teams. Is this something that creatives are interested in?
Creatives, yes. What I've actually seen in our teams, at least, which I think is quite exciting, is a lot of the grassroots excitement has come from creative teams. Because right. I honestly think good creatives, they're good creatives because they are, they're always looking for something new. They're interested. They are they're always excited about opportunity. Like that I think you need to be open to opportunity to be a good creative. So we've seen a lot of the initial grassroots excitement and adoption actually come from creative, which I think is a good sign. I think I agree that adoption and mindset is the biggest challenge because there's anxiety about the technology.
Yeah.
Right? Is there going to be job loss? Is there going to be undermining of you can get very philosophical, right? But is it undermining of the role of some people in companies or society? But now currently does it impact my job? The way we've talked about it, and we've been really, I think, committed to being super clear and transparent to our team, and we started doing that, I think, in February of this year. Technology is here. It's not going to go away. It's going to move faster than we're probably going to be able to predict and most will feel comfortable with. But it's our goal to be fast and first, right? Because
fast and first, that's good.
Fast and first, we need to make sure our teams are fast and first. We don't know what the future brings, but we know it's going to be great to be in a space where you can show that you're knowledgeable about technology, you have portfolio, you're excited about it. That's going to be a key skill set in our industry moving forward. So, yeah, I always say it's 50% excitement, 50% anxiety. We're trying to lean into the excitement part of it.
So I'm old enough that I've witnessed the change from analog to digital, and that was kind of the same thing, like anxiety, like no one is going to using film anymore. The prices dropped, which they dropped massively, the prices back then, but also like there was an influx in jobs no one has was anticipating. Do you think something similar could happen now that there are new jobs coming out, a lot more work that we don't even know about yet?
Yeah, I think historically that's been the case. Big change, it can be messy while it happens, but there tends to be new needs that originate. So it wouldn't surprise me if sizable percentages of the work that are done today by people become mostly machine 2 years from now, 3 years from now.
Okay.
But I think the work that people will be doing, it might actually be more work because the machines will open up, I would say, a higher level of opportunity when it comes to our work in general. So while we might be seeing machines encroach on part of it, I think it creates quite a bit of additional work as well. But I'm sure you watched the OpenAI Dev Day update. It's moving quickly, man. There's a lot of progress.
Quick is an understatement. It's insane. It's crazy, and it's like almost every day and something new comes out. Mind blowing. And my wife, she never did 3D. Now she's doing amazing 3D work with AI now. She better than I used to do it. That's amazing what this thing can do. So
agree.
Are you working on any secret AI projects that you can share publicly?
Well, there's a few parts to that. So we're lucky enough, I think, because of our role and sort of reputation, we tend to be quite closely connected to a lot of the roadmaps, AI roadmaps from big tech companies. So some of this came out. I think it's been in the news that we're a launch partner for Meta's Sandbox AI, for instance. We just had a really exciting almost product launch together with NVIDIA at IBC, International Broadcasting event. So we're doing quite a lot of work that is quite fundamentally connected to where some of the big tech companies are headed. Mm-hmm. And I sort of describe it as a cloud and compute revolution, right? That we've seen a cloud revolution, which was really about flexibility and cost structures, and now it's cloud and compute because it's also about the activity that can now run in the cloud to replace what would historically be maybe pieces of manual labor or physical costs. So we're doing a lot of work in that space. We're helping our clients fundamentally transform how they run their marketing teams and business, which is really exciting.
So that's real business impact if you help people restructure the departments and things.
Restructure the departments, their workflows, their ability, because it's sort of interesting, right? The excitement now around AI is mostly around generative AI, which just means if we have to put it really simply, we can make more, right? We can make more. The economics have changed. But then the question becomes, is more better? Well, maybe. But that means we need to look at how we activate media differently, right? It needs to be at higher scale, more real time, better feedback loops. Allows us to capture a lot more signal. That becomes a data story, right? If we have more signal, we can get better predictive modeling on our data sets. So generative AI is the sexy part of this story. And it's the very literally visible part of this story, but it opens up, I think, a fundamental change in how we talk about digital advertising. So for a few of our clients, we're sort of going through that transformation, which is really exciting. And then we just have cool work, like we have a bunch of, there's a really cool generative AI campaign we're launching with a big food company soon. That's just fun. It actually reminds me, to go back to a bit of history there, it reminds me of some of the very creative work we used to do back in the Flash days almost, right? Yeah, just sort of really cool visual, personalized work. So yeah, it's the whole spectrum. It's from transformative stuff to cool tech stuff to just shiny things.
And workflows, right? It's like also like the automation part.
Lots of workflows.
What excites you personally with that new change? Because this is a new change, changes the industry, changes the whole world. What about AI is it that excites you?
How big it is. And it's like it's you sort of I was trying not overstate if possible, but like there's hints of industrial revolution type stuff, right? That's sort of crazy to be a part of one of those.
Do we still underestimate AI?
Personally, I think yes. I think we overestimate. And maybe not, but we overestimate, or at least philosophize or fantasize about the sort of outsides risk, right? The Terminator Skynet part of the story.
Well,
which it'd be very disappointing if that, because we could have known. But we spent a lot of our time. And funnily enough, of course, the models are then ingesting the script. So we're sort of teaching the model the roadmap, which maybe isn't great.
Movie,
It's like we could have known. But so I think there's a lot of, we philosophize or fantasize around that level of impact constantly, but I think we actually underestimate some of what happens 6 months from now, what happens 12 months from now, what happens 24 months from now. I think even when you look at film, if you because I spend a lot of time in LA, of course, where we've had the writer strikes, which are now over, but then we still have the actor strikes. It's interesting to think about the impact on spaces like that, because we're seeing a fight that I think it's a fair worry, but are we at most 18 months away from high-end film production from the machines with Hollywood-level special effects, right? What happens to how we think about that industry if everybody can make everything, right?
That's interesting.
What happens if a leaked script can get imported into the machine and made into a movie by everybody with a decent machine, right? So I think we underestimate the short-term cultural impact because we spend a lot of time sort of about the the apocalyptic stories almost.
In short term, I mean, so if everyone can make any movie at any time, just needs to upload the script. So I could make my movie. I could script my own movie for tonight.
Well, it's yes, and we're not there yet, right? But if you look at the speed of change, just the last if you would have asked our team 3 months ago, how long will it take until we get end-to-end film production from the machine, 60 frames per second?
Yeah.
They probably would have said 2 years.
Yeah. Okay.
I think if you would ask them now, a year. Whoa. So
really,
it's really, the exponential speed of it is just difficult to predict. But on the one hand, super exciting, like explosion of creativity. On the other hand, what does it do for industry? Right? Is it another Napster moment? What Napster sort of did for the film,
blockbuster. But what comes after that? Like, to me, it's like, okay, what's can you see what's behind that? Like, what's the next thing? Because there got to be some new business models out there.
Yeah, well, that I think is the exciting thing to think about, because you sort of look at the disruption came from an Napster, and then the business model came from a Spotify. What's going to be interesting is somebody going to be able to figure out the business model and get ahead of the Napster moment? Or is that just too difficult, right? We had this conversation in LA a few months ago, where it's like, if you're at the head of a big studio, what do you do? And maybe the question is, do you want to get fired in 2 years or 5 years, right? Do you want to get fired because you're trying to make the change too quickly, or do you get fired because you didn't make the change?
Or you lead the change, maybe. That's kind of, I think that would be probably the only real thing you could do at this point. Just go all in. Makes no sense to fight it.
And I'm sure digital native players like the streamers and Netflix will use this for amazing opportunities within their model, right? More personalization, maybe much more production, faster turnarounds. It's going to open opportunities for the leaders, and it's going to be risk for the ones that have to follow. Okay,
so in summary, there is some good news for creatives, but also it's like unpredictable what's going to happen. I think we both agree that there will be plenty more jobs in the future, but we don't know how they will look like.
Don't know them yet.
Don't even know them yet. So what's like, how does a company like MediaMonks prepare for such an uncertainty? Because, I mean, change is always happening, but now it's kind of like the future has never been that unpredictable as it is now. How do you prepare for that?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's being excited about change. And realistically, we always talk about fast and first. When we commit to a change and we know it's real, then it's our goal to be there as quickly as possible, right? So that's partly internal change management and training, and partly it's commercial models, and partly it's the work we do. So number one is commitment to the moment, commitment to being fast and first. I think the other part of that is, while we don't know every step of the way, I don't think it's that difficult to predict where we're heading. So we have, I think, a pretty clear vision of where the industry is moving, what our role within that industry is. Mm-hmm. Do we know exactly what that looks like 3 months from now? No, but we have a decent idea of where it'll be 2 to 3 years from now. So I think, have been good at mapping that out, committing to that as a leadership team, and then now it's all about execution. Execution is 90% of the of the success, but that's the 10%, the vision of where it's heading and our role within that landscape. We are quite confident about.
I love that, because you're like, I mean, if anyone should be worried, it's you, because you have a lot of people on your payroll, so that's a lot of cash flow there. And you don't see anxious at all. And that when I talk to smaller companies, 30, 40 people companies, they're super anxious about the future with AI, especially when I talk to film production companies, even animation. So I love that you actually have a very positive outlook on the future in combination with AI. I love that. I have a question.
Go for it. I think the term came out last. Somebody talked about it last week, right? Techno-optimist.
Optimist.
Techno-optimist. Like, to be honest, I do get the anxiety. Like, if you're a smaller team or a bigger team, I get where that comes from. But the other side of that is, if you can't get excited about something so massive and so transformational, what can you still get excited by, right? It's a pretty crazy. I still look at some of the stuff that's happening, even what we saw yesterday. You're like, who was predicting that, right?
Okay.
Who was predicting that like 18 months ago? It's pretty amazing.
So, this is a personal question. My personal question to you is like, what? Like leading your company through many changes. Like you said, you started out 2001, then was 2008. We had a pandemic, a few crises in between. Now we have a recession. For you, what's the most challenging thing to build such a company or run such a company, lead such a company?
I think it's the honest answer is that the last few years, it's tough, right? Because we've gone through. I think we keep saying once in a generation, right? This is once in a generation. This is once in a generation. So, I think it's been more difficult than it's ever been to clearly understand not just the moment, but the moment after it, because there's less of a clear trajectory. And you saw that with COVID, where the initial worry was really high, right? Everybody in us and everybody in our industry was pretty much in survival mode for 2-3 months, and it was like, oh my God. But then actually there was a massive explosion of work, and we probably had, weirdly enough, one of our best years ever. But then that trajectory dropped quite precipitously really quickly as we hit this pullback that we were predicting, but we were predicting it not at that speed and velocity. So it's very sort of stop-start, high growth, pullback. New technology opens up a bunch of doors, but does it take away opportunities? Like it's more difficult, I think, than at least it's been in my working lifetime. And what we do, and all honesty, I think we can do it better, is give our team at least a cohesive vision, right? This is our role. The world will change. We will find our role within that space, but we have it staked out and we're clear on where we're heading. I think sometimes we might not be clear enough to our team. I think we've done okay with AI, but I think I'm actually doing something next week on it, hopefully to do more. But yeah, I think people need a vision that they believe in, that gives them the feeling that their career is going and growing within the right environment, and that they're part of a company that has an opportunity. I always say to win, but that maybe sounds too competitive, but to be relevant. Right? You want to work in an organization that's relevant. So yeah, that's what we focus on. But we're this few years, and a few more, I think, pretty interesting years to come. And talking to a lot of people in similar sort of roles and positions in the industry, everybody has a bit of a similar takeaway. Like, I've never seen something like this. So
yeah. So what you describe is pretty much leadership, right? It's like helping people to feel good, to still with their job choice, to actually be creative and have like a hope for the future, really. And and actually hope that they can grow, that they can invest something, that they can get better, and don't have to worry that in 5 years they don't have a job anymore.
No, and I think it's also, I think you have to be, in moments like this, you also have to be, I think there has to be like an intellectual honesty to it. So if you look at Cannes, for instance, earlier this year, the Creative Festival, I found it, I didn't feel it was intellectually honest, a lot of discussion around AI, right? Because it's clearly going to impact some jobs. It's clearly going to impact some of the work that we all do. It's clearly going to impact parts of the industry. But there was a very uneasy truce between everybody to not talk about it in that way. But then I think it's a disservice to your team, right? Because if you don't have a feeling of where it potentially impacts, then you also can't mitigate, right? You can't solve. So yeah, I think a bit of intellectual honesty and transparency is quite key in those moments.
How would you what would you wish that, what kind of conversations would you love to see in the creative industry around that topic?
I think we need to be honest that there is a new way of working.
Okay.
At least early phases of it. There's a new role of creative. I think historically, and this gets into maybe the story that's been going for a while, the idea of the traditional big idea versus maybe more digital native and more channel specific thinking, right? That's been maybe not a battle, but it's been a process over the last 10 years, right? It's less and less about a single big idea and TV spot and more about how does it feel in all of these different touch points that brands now have to sort of operate in and across. I also think so much of it will be about speed and agility. Right? I was talking to TikTok, I think about 2 weeks ago, and we were talking about trends where you used to be able to sort of focus on the subculture, right? There would be a subculture, and that culture would exist for 10 years. And now you have trends that explode and that live and die sometimes in days or weeks. And our traditional process of insight, strategy, and creative disconnects us from some of our ability to respond with the right agility and speed to those types of opportunities. And AI can unlock that, but it changes how we have to think about our role, right? Maybe it's more curating, maybe it's more managing output versus end-to-end laboring on a single piece of work, right? Because culture has been speeding up and speeding up and speeding up so much that I sometimes feel traditional strategy and creative gets a bit disconnected from it. So that to me is where AI becomes interesting, because if you can harness it in the right way, I think it allows people to get to output quicker. It allows people to get to insights quicker. It allows people to get to craft quicker, right? But sometimes I think we feel that something that's done quickly maybe isn't good enough. Question is, with AI, can we get it there? Like, can we get the level of fidelity that good creative needs in much shorter time frames? I think is exciting.
So you are already doing a lot of, you're working with the top brands, right? Did the kind of jobs or the requests change since AI is on the market? Like, do they have other things? Do they want to test something? Are there what changed? What problems are they solving now?
So I think we went through an interesting cycle. So lots of initial excitement, but also lots of complexity. What does this mean from a legal perspective? What are the ethics around using this technology? Okay. So we, I think, have been quite diligent in helping our clients get through those questions. I feel, and we've done some really fun work, but it's been pilots and projects. I feel we're now at the next wave where the technology feels like it's in a more mature spot. It feels more legally safe, right? There's a lot of indemnification already available via the technology companies. I think OpenAI announced copyright protection, right? If you get sued when you use their enterprise technology, they will pick up the legal battle.
Really?
Yeah. And honestly, like the Adobe Firefly indemnifies, the Picasso, the collaboration between NVIDIA and Getty indemnifies. So I think we've gotten to the point where the initial excitement now is also translating to scale, because there's less legal risk, and we work for big clients, the enterprise, and the enterprise is about mitigating and managing risks, right? So we're now seeing this next wave where honestly the key conversation, which I love because it's disruption, and I think that's to an extent why we exist, is how can we do what we do completely differently? What would it look like? What would it look like if you would build it from the ground up?
If you don't let go everything that you did in the past and start over again now.
Yeah, what would you do? It would look different, right? It would look different.
That's a very interesting question.
And we've used that same question for our internal teams. What would we look like if you would start tomorrow from scratch? What would that look like, feel like, operate like? And that to me is, those are the biggest conversations you can have. And really interesting, intellectually stimulating,
fun
ways to think about the world. But that's what we're seeing with our clients now. Fundamental questions. What would this look like if we do it completely differently?
So even so what you're saying is even the big companies, they are at the forefront. They want to lead that. They are not afraid of tapping into this. Also, they don't know.
I think everybody that we talk to, and I fully talked to 100 or so, either existing clients or hopefully new clients over the last, hopefully new clients over the last, let's call it 7 months, 8 months. I think everybody understands that this is a fundamental shift. And it is, in my mind, as big a shift as the internet is now here, right? You know that you're going to operate differently. The only thing that we also now know is adoption cycles are shorter, right? So you, as a big enterprise company, you could ignore the internet for 5, 6, 7 years before you really need it to be there. And you're not going to be able to wait 5, 6, 7 years for this. And there's interesting, I was talking to somebody about that this morning. You're also seeing the first hints that there's sort of a compound effect to this space, right? Being in the early movers seems to make you more difficult to catch up with. You can sort of see that in some of OpenAI's progress and how difficult it's been to catch up. You can see some of that in NVIDIA's lead, right? And how difficult it's to catch up. So I think there's something fundamental to the space where the compound effect is a bit bigger. And we can see that that's reflected back via the conversations we're having with clients. So I think everybody understands it's foundational shift. I think everybody wants to move. Not everybody can move quickly. And why is that? There are a million reasons. Some of that is just complexity of org structure. Some of that is scale of a business. Some of that is still legal worries. Some of that, which I thought was really interesting, who owns AI within the organization?
Oh,
right. Who I've seen, it's probably one of the more interesting components to the landscape. I've seen companies where HR owns it. I've seen companies where the CIO or CTO owns it. I've seen companies where marketing owns it. So it's also, because it's relatively new, at least the generative piece, I think it's also figuring out where in the org does it sit, right? Who owns the roadmap? But yeah, I'm enjoying the scale of the conversation, right? This isn't incremental change. This is disruptive differences.
It's disruptive, and there will be like big projects in the end too. Like if companies want to change, there will be big jobs on the market.
that, and I honestly, I think for our type of organization, which is probably a bit more creative, mixture of creative and tech, it's interesting because I think it actually makes us a more important partner to the C-level.
Yes.
Because this technology so much of it is driven through the lens of what creative can add, right? So I think it actually
it's kind of like
creative.
It actually, that's actually good. What I just realized is like the whole AI thing that gives the creatives a whole new, like a much better role now, right? It's like, like actually with AI, we should be in the C-suite now. Talk to the board.
And like it sort of goes back to the Mad Men age or era, but creators have lost some of that role and responsibility, right? They're no longer, of course, this is not the case for everyone everywhere, but we're less impactful and important than we used to be at that level, and that role has been taken up by consultancies and system integrators and big technology companies. So I think it actually opens avenues to reclaiming and retaking some of that role, which is pretty exciting. Yeah, that to me is good news.
This is really good news because now we're getting more like in the early stage of conversations, of big conversations, getting involved in the real talk, and we can actually help steer the direction in some way, and then actually be, and not just the order taker, but maybe someone that brings something to this table, something new, helps companies be more creative in the end. I love that idea. That's a beautiful idea. Let's stick with that. We'll stick with that. That's amazing.
Yeah, because collectively we've sort of been stuck in execution for a while, right? Like it's the industry has been relatively stale, so you're executing, and now you're part of change again, which is good.
Madman, execution, and now change. That's good. That's a great trajectory. Wesley, I don't want to take too much out of your day. I know you're a super busy man, but one more question, if I may. What's your message for the creative industry?
Be excited.
Be excited.
Be excited. Biggest shift in opportunity and I think creative process that we've seen maybe since definitely the internet, but maybe more than that. And we have to be excited by that because I think creatives and creative industries are the ones that synthesize and then have the opportunity to create what it actually becomes, right? So we're at the forefront of, let's call it an industrial revolution, and it's actually an industrial revolution that's perceivable through the lens of the work we do, right? Generative AI is creative. It's about creativity. It's about output. It's about visuals. It's about sound. If we can lead in that space, we can have an outsized impact on what that space becomes, an outsized impact on what we as creatives are responsible for. So
it's
be
actually
excited.
It's a great opportunity for us creatives to create or be part of the future, create the new future, and not just go deeper into production stuff. I really love it. It was a great talk. Thanks. I'm excited now. I'm really excited. Thank you so much for your time. It was a pleasure.
Thanks, Marco. I appreciate it. Same here.
Thanks for tuning in. My name is Marco Fun, and hope to see you all again on our next show where we unfold creative business minds.